All right. So, can you ever be rich? Right. And does that depend on the type of person you are and your values and so on? Meaning, do different types of people have to get rich in different ways? Right. Are they only able to get rich in different ways? Right. And where I'm going with this is a book review about the Cashflow Quadrant, basically a guide to financial freedom by Robert Kiyosaki, right? The rich dad version, right? So basically, just talking about kind of the basics of the cash flow quadrant, at least what I got from his book, right, in general. So to start off with, why should you even read it? So the reason is it's fundamental for financial education. It seems to me, right? So he has kind of three books that seem to me to be kind of like the foundation for it. This is kind of the second one. Towards Rich Dad Poor Dad's the first one, Cash Flow Quadrant, and then Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, and that kind of gives you the basic foundation for financial literacy in terms, at least makes you aware of it, so that you can actually, you're not just navigating through the dark, right? In terms of educating yourself on this kind of stuff. Um, so why you should read this one specifically. And so the rules change depending on which quadrant you're in, right? If you're an E, employee, S, self-employed or small business, B, big business, or I, investor, right? The rules are different for each one, right? And it's not that you can't get rich in any one of the four quadrants. It's the way you do so has to be different, right? Because you're playing by different rules, right? And so, yes, there's that. So who is he? Right, he's the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. He has cash flow board games, which, by the way, are really fun. I've played both of them. Believe they're back home, and my dad's been using them. At least I think so. But anyways, they're really fun. So basically, and he's known as being a major entrepreneur in real estate and also investing in oil and that sort of thing, right? For this book specifically, its first edition was published in 1998, it seems. And so what exactly are you going to find in it? Explanations of the cash flow quadrant, kind of what I just talked about, but way more in depth. I'm not going to read the book to you. I'm just kind of bringing it up so you know what to expect when you read, and whether or not you want to read it yourself, right? Which I highly recommend. It is kind of like a foundational book for financial literacy, it seems. So in the first part, he gives core differences between the people in each quadrant. Again, which quadrant are you in? What do you need to do? That sort of thing. So like, where are you now is in there, and where do you want to be based on your values? Like, do you need to switch over to a different quadrant, right? In terms of your habits, then basically meaning your behavior, what you'll get, that sort of thing. Part two, it's personal change. And so, like, who do you have to be instead of what do you have to do, right? Again, making things habitual so you naturally and I don't want to say easily, but simply transition into that new kind of way of life, right? Because your habits are different and you're doing this on a regular basis, and eventually things are going to accumulate and you're actually going to move there, right? It's going to be second nature to be a certain person or do certain things, right? In part three, it's how to find success on the right side of the quadrant, meaning the B or I side. And to quote directly, to be a B or I, you must be able to control the direction of your cash flow, right? And then another quote, each quadrant is different. To generate income from different quadrants requires different skills and a different personality, right? This is what I was talking about with the being different types of people. You have to know how to do certain things. Like if you're an employee, unless you're working in marketing, you probably don't need to be an expert marketer, right? If you're just working a high paying blue collar job or whatever, maybe running crews, being a foreman, whatever, maybe not so much for that one, but running crews, or you're physically doing things with your hands, you most likely don't need to be a great marketer to do that. Probably wouldn't be hurt. It probably wouldn't hurt or be harmful. But again, getting ahead of myself. Anyways, again, you can be rich or poor in all 4 quadrants, right? So the quadrants don't necessarily define rich or poor. It defines the type of person you need to be. The type of person you are defines where in the which quadrant you're in, and from there the rules that you have to play with and the ways or pathways it would take you to be able to accumulate wealth, right? That's kind of the line of thinking for this, right? To pull another quote, so being successful in the 4 quadrants often means redirecting some internal core values. And so again, this is kind of where I alluded to on it depends on what you value, right? And so some of the core values for each of the quadrants. So E for employee, they really value like security or benefits is a buzzword for them to kind of draw them in, that sort of thing. Like a pension or 401k, that sort of thing. S's, the self-employed or small business, really want to kind of be their own boss, do it themselves, or they're major perfectionists. That's how the people that are drawn more towards that. The B side of things is their line of thinking is why do it yourself when you can hire someone to do it better, right? So that's really how you kind of grow and scale a much bigger business than what you can do on your own, right? So you have people who work for you. Then the investors, is like your money works for you, right? And that's kind of like the final stage. It almost seems like most people would necessarily want to get into, because obviously I don't know every point of view, but it definitely wouldn't hurt to not have. I mean, if you still want to work and stuff, even when you're like 80 or whatever, and you still can, obviously you're going to do it anyway, but it definitely wouldn't hurt to not have to, right? It not being a necessity is helpful, is more and more helpful as you age, right? And that sort of thing. And so that's kind of what to expect in this book in general. It's not too long. The words are pretty big, at least in the grand scheme of things. It's a little under 300 pages, so it's not huge. He breaks it down into nice little sections. He's very, very easy to read in terms of his books and that sort of thing. Like you're not gonna have problems reading it, at least for most people, it seems. But he's known, at least what I've noticed, he always has lots of pictures in his books, pictures and diagrams, and especially when you're a very visual person, that's very helpful. At least it is for me. At least that's how I learn. But anyways, I'm going to leave this one here. And so I'm going to try to find, I haven't found it yet, but a video of him explaining his cash flow quadrant himself. Because I'm sure there's tons of them out there. I just need to find a specific video, and I'll put that as a card or something, or maybe even a link in the description so you guys can find it yourself. And watch him explain it himself. And also put a card up for the review of his guide to investing, right? And that sort of thing for that kind of third book and that kind of trifecta I was talking about, or triad, whatever you want to talk, however you want to say it. Anyways, I'm going to leave that one there. So, and I hope to see you guys there.